Hey, camera, Mark!
Mark, can I see you in position for a moment?
Everybody who's a Philadelphia Eagle fan who lives in the city knows who Vince Papale is.
To Vince Papale, neighborhood boy.
First of all, imagine what's going through my head, knowing that a movie's being made about me. I mean, how great is that?
This guy from the 700 level, he came running down the stairs and tackled everybody.
Special teams is an attitude, and Vince personified that.
It's all about his heart and his willingness to sacrifice himself for something that he ultimately just enjoys to do.
I couldn't be more happy to have Mark Wahlberg playing me. He's just pure passion and enthusiasm.
To overcome all those things and really seeing the effect, this guy had on the town. That's why we're making a movie about it. I mean, it's that impossible.
He played like a guy who had been handed his dream. But however long it was going to last, when it was over, he didn't want to walk away and regret a second of it. You had to be invincible to do what this guy did.
He was invincible.
He is invincible.
I am invincible, and this is my story.
From the mid-'60s to the late '70s, the Philadelphia Eagles were a study in futility.
Oh, this is a mess.
Hey, Coach! Thanks for the 3 wins! You're a bum!
This is a major, major mess.
The fans of this city were starved for a winner. They really needed something. They needed some hope. They needed something that suggested that there was a better tomorrow.
And now it gives me great pleasure to present the new coach of the Philadelphia Eagles.
And Dick Vermeil represented that to the fans and to the city. His idea was, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to build a new kind of team, and I'm going to build it my way.
The previous administration had left him with a pretty bad hand, and he was desperate. And if it meant calling in the bartenders from around town, he'd do that.
See, Vince, that's another reason why you got to try out this weekend.
Nobody's trying out, Tommy, okay?
Why not?
We actually had an open house camp and just invited anybody who wanted to try out to come, and it was a kick.
You had guys who had played high school ball and hadn't played football for 4 or 5 years. You had the truck driver who lifted weights and always envisioned himself as an NFL lineman.
Take it off.
It's a circus. At times it's hard to take it seriously because so few of these guys have any chance of playing anywhere.
5-2 I got.
I've seen glaciers move faster.
But every so often, the right guy comes through the door, and in Philadelphia, that guy was Vince Papale.
Now what you want to do is grab your ankle, bend over and put your nose to your knee for a 5 count. We'll do it 3 times to the right leg and 3 times to the left.
You could see right away that he could run. He had pretty good speed. And in those days, someone who ran 4.6 was fast.
All right.
Of the group, he stood out the most. So I brought him to training camp.
That's it. All right, that's it.
He didn't know anything about whether I could hit anybody, whether I would hit anybody. I don't think he knew about my college background.
Or lack of college background. You see, when Vince Papale arrived at Eagles training camp, he was a 30-year-old rookie who never played college football.
Vince played just 1 year of high school football, went to a college that didn't even have a football program, but a guy that really wanted to play football more than anything else. When he got out of college, he played rough touch football and was the best rough touch player in all of Delaware County, to the point where he was so good that other guys in the league said, well, you're fine in a touch league, but you can't play real football. And Vince took that as a challenge.
And the interesting thing about Vince was he went into college at 5'8", maybe 135 pounds. But when he came out, he was 6'1" and a solid 190. So he was a physically opposing guy, and he did have great athletic ability.
What Papale didn't have became evident as training camp began.
It was rather interesting to see him come out there, a 30-year-old rookie, working so hard with this huge desire to make things happen, but yet getting no respect.
I think that the guys on the team thought that I was a publicity stunt. Hey, who's this 30-year-old guy? You know, he's over on the rookie side. Nobody's saying much to me. I'm not saying much to anybody.
And I think initially there was a feeling that, how can we take this guy seriously? You know, what is his pedigree? What right does he really have to even be here?
And when you get somebody who is coming downfield and hitting everybody in sight during the practice sessions, they're thinking, who is this hot dog? What is this guy doing messing around with our careers?
What do you think you're doing out there, Pops?
What?
It's the first day of camp. Might want to settle down. Try helping out the ones who are actually going to make this team.
Then all of a sudden, later, you start getting in the kicking game, okay? And you have punt coverage drills and kickoff coverage drills and punt return drills and kickoff return drills. And he started to really excel. For never having played football, he knew how the game had to be played. And he liked the intensity of the game. He was passionate about it. It excited him to hit somebody. He didn't mind getting hit. He'd get up as quick as he could to show you, that didn't bother me. You know, I can take a hit.
They didn't have any wide receivers out there that were willing to just go out there and mix it up, you know, to bang heads, to get physical. And I was willing to do anything and everything within law to make that team.
Despite a productive preseason, Papale's fate was still uncertain.
It's the day of the final cut. And we finally get out. We're going to do our stretches for a pre-practice on that Monday. And I'm counting around, and I was 30, 43, 44, 45, because I got to be the 45th man on the roster. Coach Ramil walks over to me, and I'm thinking, oh, man, this is it. This is the cruelest joke you could ever have. You're going to cut me right now, right?
He was so insecure, and I know when he saw me walking toward him, a lot of things had to be going through his mind.
And he just looked at me, started smiling. He said, congratulations, old man. He says, you're a Philadelphia Eagle. And I just went absolutely bonkers. Tears were streaming down my eyes, you know, and I said, this is unbelievable.
I remember he must have had a vertical leap of 38 inches that day. He just went straight to the moon. Ran over to the people at practice, you know, when he found out, come on, I made it, you know, and this was a dream come true for the guy.
After making the team, it wasn't long before Vince Papale was making an impact.
I mean, here you have, you know, Vince, the Philadelphia guy from the 700 level, in his first game, regular season game, at the Vet, makes a very big play where he goes downfield and hits Robinson, forces a fumble, recovers, and sets up what proves to be the insurance touchdown in that game. And what I thought was kind of interesting was over the course of the year, people were asking, who is that 83? And they were asking it pretty quick.
And that was the thing. If you can play special teams, you can turn heads. And Vince was down there. He was a bomb squatter. He was somebody who played without any regard for the welfare of his body.
One word, launch. You know, one of those rockets you see at Cape Canaveral or Cape Kennedy, whatever they're calling it now. I mean, you launched Vince. He looked forward to a kickoff.
Vince had a lot of big hits that year. And he hit a lot of guys. He had a lot of guys that were free agents like him, and he hit a lot of first-round draft picks. I mean, it didn't matter. Whoever had the ball was going down.
I remember fumbles that he caused by just slamming into people at full speed.
I really didn't want him to fair catch. I wanted him to take that chance because I just wanted to just blow him up. And sometimes I get ticked off if I couldn't blow them up. So if they were on the ground, I'd just nail them anyway. So
It was nuts. I mean, it was nuts. I mean, when you make your living covering punts, covering kickoffs, making a football team, you got to be nuts.
He was nuts. You know, you always need some guys that are nuts. Those guys that jump out of foxholes and charge the enemy are maybe a little nuts.
In fact, you know, we had the T-shirts that we awarded every Saturday night after a game that we had won the previous Sunday. It said on it, "Who's nuts?" And we took pride in wearing those shirts because, if you got one of those Who's Nut shirts, man, that meant something. That means you were a guy that gave it all, that busted your butt to get down and make a tackle and break the wedge and sacrifice everything for the football team. Yeah, we were nuts, and Vince was the leader of the pack.
When they made him special teams captain, I thought that was really significant because that was really the final step in being established as not just a guy on the team, but someone that the other guys on the team looked up to. I think by the end of the season, even the most cynical and jaded of the veterans on that team recognized the fact that they had seen something very remarkable unfold that year.
Papale's rise from the sandlots to the NFL resembled another Philadelphia longshot who defied the odds.
Philadelphia guy from the neighborhood, 30-something, given no chance, told he can't do it. I mean, it's the same story.
Vince Papale became the fans of Philadelphia Sylvester Stallone. An Italian kid, the South Philly area, that they could visualize him being the guy hitting the beef in the freezer, and coming down old 9th Street over there in South Philly hitting the garbage can.
People here identify with those kinds of characters, blue collar, tough, Italian, very ethnic.
They want their athletes to have mud and blood and some tears and some sweat, and mostly they don't care if they get knocked down. They care that they get back up.
Look around. Rocky's wearing number 83 and he's playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. It really is true. And the fact that Vince's story happened at the same time that Rocky was released and won the Best Picture really added to the legend.
He's a guy who had his shot, who only wanted to go the distance, and became an inspiration, not only for the city, but I think Vermeil credits him widely with helping restore a winning attitude back to the team.
In 1979, after 3.5 seasons with the Eagles, injuries forced Papale to retire. He was 34 years old.
What that team went on to accomplish in 79 and then in 80 when they went to the Super Bowl, Vince was a part of that. He wasn't on the field anymore, but he was part of that whole transformation and still a part of what that team ultimately became.
Jaworski gives off inside, running with recovery up the right side.
Well, the day we signed Vince Papale, I think that's the day the Eagles got free. I think they weren't afraid to say, hey, let's take a part of Philadelphia, put it right on that field, and we'll get to the Super Bowl.
In 1976, Vince Papale and Rocky Balboa became synonymous to the people in Philadelphia. 25 years later, NFL Films decided to commemorate the two by producing a 4-minute piece that aired before a Monday night football game.
So when Pete finished the piece, Janet and I, decided we're just going to throw a party to celebrate it. And there I am watching this, and it just brought me to my knees because it was so beautiful. It was just so well done, and you really captured the spirit of it. So after the piece is shown on Monday Night TV, I get a call from Ken Mock, who's producing America's Next Top Model. And he's got a movie producer who has contacts with Disney by the name of Victor Constantino. So Ken sees this story on Monday night, and he's, wow, this is great stuff. Let's see what we can do with it. And he gives it to Victor Constantino, and Victor sees it.
A minute and a half into it, I knew it was a movie. I knew it. There are a few times when I've gotten that feeling in this business, but a minute and a half into the featurette, I knew it.
In less than 2 years, a screenplay was written, and it was decided that the two producers who made The Rookie and Miracle were the perfect fit for Invincible.
When it went around town, there was a great deal of interest from different studios, and I think the thought was that we were the best placed and the best home for it, Disney and us producing, because of the movies we had done, and it fit nicely into and into the kind of tales we tell.
And from there, it was a very accelerated process.
We hired Erickson Core to direct. Then we got Mark Wahlberg. And at that point, we were basically off to the races.
Camera rolling, bugger.
You know, and I said this in 1976, someday they're going to make a movie out of this. I guess it took 30 years to make its way to the screen, but it was a movie from day one.
Before arriving on set, Papale was a bit unsure as to what he would find.
All I know is I was as nervous coming into that set as I was when I was going to play my first game in the NFL, just coming through that tunnel. I had no idea what to expect. I wasn't prepared for what I was going to see. They wrote no script for that one. And when I walked in Franklin Field and saw all the extras up there, all the blow-up dummies, all the equipment, Mark Wahlberg on the set, I went absolutely bonkers.
Can you believe this?
No, I can't. Oh, my God. I went bananas. I said, oh, my God. This is really happening. It's wild. That's just sort of sucking this up, man.
Sure, you should.
Oh, God. Wish I could put it in a bottle, you know, anytime you needed a little bit of a juice.
Absorb as much as you can.
I am.
I don't think he ever got tired of the fact that we were making a movie about him.
He must have said, you know, I got to pinch myself 5,000 times. I mean, he's living a dream.
Yeah, baby.
I mean, he loved it. He loved being there. He loved watching. He loved everything about the process, and that was fun to watch. And
there's the rain.
You know, he had that video camera up to his face. He must have 100 hours of video that he's still taking.
For all the hours Papale spent behind the camera, he did manage a few seconds in front of one.
Vince had a small role. He played a coach, and he did great.
I don't know if he says anything, but you can kind of tell that it's him.
Wahlberg, who plays Vince, lines up for a play, and in the background you see Vince clapping him on.
It's just like, it's such a... yeah.
He made his money on the film. He doesn't need to make it as an actor. Plus, his head's too big.
What can I say about Mark Giardi? If everybody was as pretty as he was, you know, we wouldn't have any troubles in our life.
Although some may question Papale in a supporting role, there was never any doubt about the leading man.
For me, when I read the script, Mark Wahlberg was the first person I thought of when I read it, and it's the first name I brought to the studio.
Mark is a terrific athlete, and he's got that street credibility, and he just feels like a guy that could come off the streets and be believable in that role.
I've never played football with equipment. I played tackle football without equipment, but basically just throwing people around. You know, you grab them by the shirt and fling them on the ground. And this was a lot more like, you know, two cars colliding.
The guy does almost all his own stunts. I mean, he's the one who's running the ball. He's the one who's making tackles. He's the one who's getting tackled.
That's great.
Malcolm should go tighter on that same.
He promised me that he was going to play the role with enthusiasm, passion. He had a tremendous responsibility to me and to our family.
I don't want to let the guy down, you know. I don't want to let the team down. I don't want to let the coach down, you know. It's as important to them as it is to me. So we got to go out there and make it real.
It's nice being the coach. I've watched it from like 3 feet away. Boom!
It was funny. We would work so hard and be like, oh, you know, did we work Mark too hard? Did he get hit too hard? Did he run too much? Let's give him a break.
Get it, go get it. That's it. That's it. Fight, 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 fight.
And then we turn around shooting something else, and there he is running out on the field, throwing the ball, running in circles, and playing.
On one play, he took a hit so hard that one of our football players mistimed a hit, and they hit him like getting hit by a Mack truck.
He wasn't supposed to get wiped out. And he swears that it didn't hurt him. But now he knew what it was like to play in the NFL, because I took some shots. I don't know if I've ever taken some hits as hard as that one. Maybe as hard, but never harder. God, did he do a great job. He was so good.
Mark and Vince became very good friends. I mean, there was a real connection there, and it was fostered by both, you know, Mark and Vince.
I didn't find it odd at all that Wahlberg liked him immediately, and I think it made him more comfortable to play the role because he felt like he was doing honor to this guy.
We're people, and you knew as the minute you met Mark Wahlberg that he wasn't way up there. He was right there with us, and he treated us with respect, kindness, generosity. But the most important thing, he treated my children with respect and made them feel special. I remember this one thing. It was when we were doing the mud scenes for the Rough Touch, and Vinny saw Mark there, and then all of a sudden, the two of them, they started tackling each other in the mud, and it was absolutely priceless. I only have one regret right now about this movie, and that's my dad's not here to see that. And Kevin Conway just played him so beautifully, and he just nailed it.
When I told you not to get your hopes up, didn't mean that I wasn't. Okay?
I'm watching that scene through the headsets, and it's happening 50 yards away from me. But just to see that intimacy and the way it was played out, I had to get off the set. It just totally blew me away. My dad and I probably butted heads a few times, but he was always there for me, but in a different way. It was tough love personified with my father, and I didn't understand that. And then after I graduated from college, I realized how important he was to me, and that I really needed him there with me. I needed him there so I could please him. I needed him there to give me a pat on the back, to tell me that I was somebody special. But I just give everything to have a catch with my dad right now. And my mom. She was a great athlete. That would be so cool. God, I wish they were here. But they're there. They're watching. And they're smiling. They'll be proud.
I'm a lucky man.
Though his parents are gone, Papale's main support still lies within the foundation of family.
Everybody in their life needs a rock and needs that stability. I have that in my wife, Janet. I have Gabriella, and I have Vincent. And between the three of them, that's the perfect cornerstone. And I don't mean to say that to be sentimental or melodramatic, but they're everything in my life. And everything that I do right now is for my children and my wife. I'm just a guy that's in the middle and having a blast with them. And that's what drives me. One of these days, I'm going to vicariously be living my dreams through Mini Vinny. I got to tell you, I love watching him play football, and already I'm loving how he explodes. He's going to be something.
Way to hit that hole, baby. Good, Vinny. Run, man. Yeah. Go, Vinny. Yeah. Yeah, baby.
Wide receiver, Vince Papale.
Vince Papale will probably be remembered as the free agent walk-on who defied football logic. But above all, his legacy will live on with the men he played with and the city he inspired.
Vince will always have a special place in this town because he did something that the other guys couldn't do. I mean, he took the passion of the Philadelphia fan, put it in a jersey, and threw it into the wedge on Sunday. I think he's going to be remembered as the physical manifestation of every fan's desire, going back generations. But it wasn't the kind of history that you're going to be able to look up in a record book. It's the kind of history that you're going to find in the heart of a city and in the people that go to the games. And in a sense, that's the greater history because that's the one that lives on. People are going to remember him and his number and his desire and how they felt watching him play longer than they're going to remember guys that caught more passes and scored more touchdowns. Because to them, what Vince did said more about who they were as fans and as a city than anything else. And that's what his legacy is going to be.
But I don't think this is the end of Vince. I think it's the beginning. I think this movie is going to tell a story that everybody can get a little piece of and really bring it right into their own heart and say, you know what? I've been dealing with that. I was ready to give up. I think I can do something.
In 1976, I dreamt of becoming a Philadelphia Eagle. And now, 30 years later, people are calling me invincible. Don't stop living your dream.